The Mark IV Mjolnir-powered assault armor introduced a new era of battlefield technology. Gone were the robust and bulky exoskeletons of the past, and in were the far more mobile, powerful, stylish, and iconic suits of armor. Mjolnir came about from decades of trial and error, built to go far beyond the attempts that came before it. And it worked. This was the armor that finally stuck and would lead to countless versions being made in the not-so-distant future from its conception. The designs varied as different jobs called for different looks and purposes. Despite these visual and physical differences between the internal and external components, these Mark IV suits still ran from the same core system up until the introduction of Mark V. In 2511, Dr. Catherine Halsey started from scratch, forgetting about the Orion prototypes and the old exoskeletons, deciding to rebuild her vision from the ground up until Mjolnir, also known as Mark IV, came to be. It was manufactured by Materials Group and designed alongside the Spartan II program. Even after later models like the Mark V, Mark VI, and Mark VII, base Mark IV continued to stay in service, saying a lot about its reliability. A schematic from late 2524 showed an early Mark IV design that doesn't fully match the final version we know. This blueprint may depict a lesser-known variation of Mark IV, or perhaps a prototype of some kind that never made it past the initial testing phase run by the Naval Special Warfare Command. The design resembles the Mark V armor, maybe acting as inspiration for it. It's even got a little bit of Gen 2 Mark V Alpha in there as well. There's also this other early model of base Mark IV I found that likely never made it past the conceptual phase. In February of 2525, the Naval Special Warfare Command ran final testing on Mjolnir's prototype. They spent months stress testing the armor to make sure it lived up to Halsey's vision, and on November 27th of 2525, the Mark IV Mjolnir-powered assault armor was issued to the Spartan II operatives. It surpassed expectations. Sort of. I mean, absolutely incredible considering the Spartans' first use of the suit was against actual extraterrestrial forces. I'm talking about literal aliens from outer space. And of course, there's going to be unexpected problems because of that. But these unexpected problems opened the door to potential improvements. One of the Spartans, Samuel 034, was announced MIA after his suit had been breached by a plasma weapon that melted straight through the armor. While he survived that shot, he wasn't able to escape due to the fatal damage it had caused to the armor itself. And just like that, this armor that's cost is rumored to be as much as a UNSC destroyer was easily damaged by a single shot. But to be fair, it's not our fault that an alien race, believing we're the ultimate threat standing in their way of salvation, suddenly decided to land at our doorstep and start annihilating entire planets. These things were made to destroy other humans, after all, not fight an extraterrestrial threat. At least not yet. See, thanks to our generous friends in the Covenant, energy shielding would be adapted to work with Mjolnir armor, keeping it nice and safe from those plasma blasts. So yeah, thanks guys. Other details on the armor specifications. The armored core was powered by an integrated fission reactor, later replaced in 2535 with a microfusion cell. The outer armor was made from a titanium alloy, strong enough to take hits from some armor-piercing rounds, but not plasma. Underneath the armor plating was a black bodysuit designed to regulate body temperature and keep the wearer alive in zero-gravity and toxic environments. A neural link interface located at the backside of the helmet converts brain signals into digital commands, letting the user control the suit with their thoughts. I've heard it described as you moving the suit and the suit in return moving you. The armor was first tested by normal humans, which proved to be fatal. The suit just responded too damn fast for anybody who hadn't gone through Spartan II augmentations. So really only the Spartans could wear Mark IV safely. Unless you're Sergeant Johnson. That man could survive anything, except for this little asshole. Fuck. Magnetic weapon holders were added to the thighs, the waist, and the back. Magnetic boots as well, crucial for zero-gravity operations, especially when paired with the EVA variants, which we'll cover later. The fail-safe detonation system. In the unfortunate event that a Spartan couldn't make it out of the fight alive, they could trigger this feature, which would obliterate everything within a 10-meter radius. ensuring none of the armor could be salvaged by enemy forces. Although it would seem this option wasn't popular among Spartans. This is likely due to either not getting the chance to employ it, or simply choosing to fight until their dying breaths, which I mean I can respect. Although the original suits given to the operatives were nearly identical besides the numbers tagging each individual Spartan, later customizability would be expanded from different colored armors, visors, and attachments. The unique ID numbers engraved into the plating would eventually be mostly phased out when mass production took place, but it would make a comeback later on with select Spartan 2s. By the end of the war, Mark IV had gone through dozens of variations. It was the starting point for every suit that came after, and continued to see active use well into the 2560s, especially after being adapted for the Gen 2 and Gen 3 platforms. Every Spartan 2 who survived augmentations and could still fight wore this armor at one point or another. One of the earliest appearances of the CQB helmet's design potentially dates all the way back to November 27th of 2525, the day the Spartan 2s received their base Mark IV armor. The helmet has a rounded, compact build, its overall shape giving a boxer headgear kind of impression. It's like something you'd wear in the ring. Now, some sources claim that Samuel 034 used a CQB helmet during the Battle of Kaiseri IV. Other sources contradict this, stating that every Spartan 2 was issued the same base Mark IV variant, including the helmet. Many artist interpretations also depict Sam with a standard Mark IV helmet, and much of that art predates the depiction of him with the CQB variant. Now, that wouldn't be a big deal on its own. I mean, why can't Sam have used both, right? Well, the issue is, Samuel died during his first use of the armor. That was the only time he ever wore MJOLNIR, so what's real here? Honestly, it all comes down to interpretation, really. Personally, I think CQB does fit Sam's look pretty well, and I loved seeing one of my favorite helmets being used by one of my favorite Spartans, but I don't fully buy that this was the helmet he wore during his first and only Covenant engagement. See, in that same adaptation, other Spartan 2s were shown wearing unique helmets and gear, some of which I'm almost positive weren't developed until decades later. So realistically, the decision to give everyone unique sets of armor feels more like a visual storytelling choice, you know, to help viewers tell who's who without having to strain their brains. At this point, I like to think of the Fall of Reach animated movie being an in-universe dramatization made after the war when all this stuff got declassified. You know, for the fans. For now, I'll list its earliest possible deployment as November 27, 2525. Although Materials Group originally designed the first prototype of CQB used in November of 2525, both its designation and mass production wouldn't occur until BERTA Systeme took over development and production of the armor in 2535. Following the conclusion of the Jericho 7 campaign earlier that year, it was determined that a MJOLNIR variant specifically designed to better the chances of surviving close-quarters engagements was a necessity. BERTA Systeme pitched two armors to the UNSC, designed for close-quarters engagements, an upgraded version of the previous CQB prototype, standing for Close Quarters Battle, and a new variant, CQC, standing for Close Quarters Combat. The new CQB variant was approved, but the design made for CQC wouldn't begin development until around the 2540s, alongside the third iteration of CQB. This was likely because CQB was a familiar design to the UNSC, and in general, being a new manufacturer for MJOLNIR, they wanted them to stick to something more familiar. The second prototype of CQB began development at the Special Warfare Center Essen in Germany, and later was improved further after receiving feedback from the Special Warfare Center Sagnam in Korea. The improvements made to CQB by Systeme made the variant an iconic piece of armor that was now directly linked to them. Along with the upgraded helmets, armor pieces for knee protection were created as well for the variant. The final iteration of this version of CQB specifically wouldn't show up until it was reintroduced as a Mark V variant in 2551. By 2545, a third prototype of CQB was created, now including shoulder pieces and a chest plate designed to prioritize mobility and reinforce protection in close quarters engagements. A built-in combat knife was also added to the chest plate to further indicate the armor's use as a specialized variant for close quarters combat. A newly designed helmet, which still retained the original's general shape, with the key difference being visible etchings engraved into the visor, was also created. This particular prototype of CQB included enhanced kinetic dispersal layers designed to better absorb impact, preventing serious damage from shrapnel and bullets. These upgrades were later enhanced further for Mark VI. Daisy 023 wore this version of CQB during the Covenant invasion of Sargasso in 2546. According to a survey taken aboard the UNSC Infinity around March 14, 2558, the CQB chestplate was the most used among Spartan 4's training in wargame simulations. XANTIPPE, also known as Glass Knight, entered service alongside the Mark IV armor on November 27, 2525. This variant was designed to be less costly after a proposal made by UNSC HICOM in 2524. However, Dr. Catherine Halsey went on to ignore UNSC HICOM altogether, opting to ensure the final design met her specifications. Attachments like the Glass Knight suite, a hazard zone configuration paired with MK50 Seaburn, a target acquisition system, and the Odd Knight forward observation suite could be used with this early variant of MJOLNIR. Spartan 2 technical assessment team studying Covenant plasma bombardment found themselves using this helmet frequently early on in the war. Only 6 days after Blue Team received their base Mark IV armor, they were refitted with new experimental suits of armor, each personalized for the 4 of them. On December 3, 2525, Blue Team donned these unique sets of MJOLNIR developed under Project COBALT. So how the hell did these variants show up less than a week after the baseline armor went live? Well, Project COBALT had to have been in development for years, especially if it launched just days after the original suit's deployment. My best guess is that this project started development sometime around 2521. This would have given ONI enough time after Blue Team's formation in 2517 to observe their personal strengths and capabilities in order to design a custom armor suite for each of them by the time they were put into the field in 2525. Is that date confirmed anywhere? No, but it feels right, so I'm gonna go with it. The COBALT suits were personalized variants of Mark IV, designed to test out experimental tech, most notably early active camouflage systems, reverse engineered from Covenant equipment. This camo tech bent to light around the armor, rendering it mostly invisible, but because it was only a prototype, it wasn't all that great or reliable. During their first mission in COBALT gear, John and Kelly's suits came equipped with surveillance drones. Each suit also came equipped with blades mounted into the forearms for CQC purposes and could even be fired as projectiles. Fred 104 was especially fond of these, asking his team members to remind him to tell Halsey how much he liked them. I'll be covering each suit individually next in the order of their team designations. Linda 058's COBALT armor, known officially as SV.058, served her recon specialties well. This suit came equipped with advanced optics and a multi-spectral rangefinder system, allowing her to track and tag targets across just about any environmental condition you could think of. It also featured a twin-engine external VTOL propulsion rig mounted to the back of the suit, a jetpack, allowing for a brief thruster boost to find better positions, avoid danger, or reposition without having to lay a foot on the ground. Kelly 087's suit of COBALT armor, officially designated RV.087, was built for fast movement. No surprise there, considering she was literally the fastest person alive. The armor also looks like an early predecessor to EVA, perhaps even a permutation if early prototypes of EVA existed by this point in time. Now on to Fred 104's armor, designated MV.104. I'll be honest, I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I probably would have gone into more detail about the forearm blades since he liked them so much, but again, from what I can tell, every one of Blue Team's specialized armors included these. Fred's armor did take a direct slash from an energy sword, yet still it protected him. It might have left a deep laceration in the plating, and yes, the suit became depressurized, and yeah, it started flooding slowly as they walked along the bottom of the ocean floor, but he survived, so. John 117's COBALT armor, designated CV.117, was visually similar to base Mark IV, but with a much sharper and angular design. It also looks like a clear inspiration for the Mark VI mod. Maybe that's what this helmet can now represent within the cinematic. And I'm not even gonna mention the fucking nanobots. Even Cortana thinks that's just stupid. The Mark IV-B armor entered service in early 2526. It served to test armor attachments and experimental systems. But unlike Project COBALT, this armor wasn't tailored for specific Spartans in the field, but instead acted as a universal armor system customizable for all Spartans in the field. Its similarities to Mark V-B are no coincidence, acting as direct inspiration for the upgraded armor that would enter service on November 24, 2551. By spring of 25-26, an early prototype of what would eventually become the air assault helmet was manufactured by Ushuaia Armory. Ushuaia had begun work on the variant while Mjolnir itself was still in development, making it one of the earliest contributors to Mjolnir outside of Materials Group. Air Assault was built for airborne operations. The helmet's optics system could deliver real-time satellite imagery directly to the user's HUD to tag enemy signatures from above for reconnaissance operations. This early prototype was similar to the helmets used by Army personnel outfitted with AX cross-branch battle dress uniforms. Originally developed as a potential upgrade for ODST squads, it eventually caught the attention of those working on Mjolnir. In April of 25-26, Kelly 087 wore this early air assault prototype during a mission against insurrectionist forces, and again later that month during the Battle of Sergenis 4. This makes Kelly's use of air assault the earliest known deployment of it as well. By 25-35, the finalized version of Mark IV air assaults was developed by Ushuaia Armory, following weapons testing at the Saifook firing range. The helmet was favored by UNSC Army Pathfinders and was optimized for aerial deployment and in low-atmosphere combat zones, similar to the EVA variants. In 25-51, the air assault helmet would be upgraded to the Mark V Mjolnir platform. During the Battle of Earth in 25-52, air assault saw active deployment by security personnel tasked with guarding critical complexes on both Earth and Luna from Covenant forces. That's the moon. Catherine B320 wore the Mark V version of air assault, making use of the Starlight attachment module. By spring of 25-26, Materials Group finished manufacturing a second iteration of the base Mark IV armor. While the armor retains the same general silhouette of Mark IV, the main differences of it came from its appearance. The new design patterns of the undersuit, the main armor pieces, more angular shoulder plating, a more pronounced number designation, and a helmet completely distinct to the original besides its basic shape. And to further expand upon this design of the helmet, the upper brim no longer sported a defined slit between both ends, instead now extending all the way across, giving it a unibrow, respectively. Both visors display different line etching designs, and the flattened armor vents seen on the jawline of the original Mark IV have been completely replaced with external tubes, similar to Mark VI. Without any solid data on the inner workings of the suit, many of these changes appear to be cosmetic. But it's important to note that this version of Mark IV saw use only 3 to 4 months after the first armor's initial deployment in November of 25-25. This implies that the second version of Mark IV had to have been in development concurrently with the first. A revelation that isn't too surprising when considering the previous schematics and early models of base Mark IV that went unused during the power armor's conception. The second iteration of base Mark IV has been likened to Mark VI various times, and the visual similarities are undeniable. Artist interpretations depicting Master Chief prior to 25-52 will sometimes have him in his Mark VI armor. A reasonable way to interpret this would be to say that it likely is just the second version of base Mark IV, as that suit seemed to be favored by John.
We've got 15 minutes to get to the evac point. Armor up.
It's locked.
I can only imagine how giddy he got when he saw how much his Gen 3 suit resembled it. John 117 first used this armor when he fought against insurrectionist forces in spring of 25-26, and then again during the Battle of Sergenis 4 in April. In 25-44, Blue Team used this armor during Operation Warm Blanket with a prototype of integrated energy shielding. It's also possible that Spartan 3, Owen B096 used this armor during the Battle of Meridian in 25-48. Owen was issued this armor variant temporarily before eventually switching to Mark IVB JFO. No matter the reason for this armor's existence, its capabilities are undeniable and certainly allow it to live up to the original. We've seen a Spartan in this thing take a direct smack from a Mechalagolo's shield, then get right back up to defeat the thing without a problem. The JFO helmet, aka the Joint Fires Observer variant of Mjolnir, was also designed by the WILHELM Systeme. The helmet was designed for Spartans acting as eyes on the ground deep behind enemy lines where satellite data was unavailable. There they would request artillery or target locator support.
Telemetry received on standby.
The variant also included shoulder pauldrons with built-in antenna modules to support signal transmission capabilities. Knee armor was also created for JFO, and just like any other attachments, these arm and knee pieces could be linked with other variants of Mjolnir armor as well. Interestingly enough, this variant had been referred to as an ill-favored child by members of the UNSC Ordnance Commission, who viewed Bewältigkeit Rüstungssystema's involvement with Mjolnir as a risk. There were certainly worries that came with introducing new manufacturers into Mjolnir's expanded developments on armor variants. Despite the less-than-friendly introduction, JFO became the successful start that Bewältigkeit Rüstungssystema needed to prove themselves as worthy manufacturers for future Mjolnir variants. The ÖKONOM helmet is one of the more obscure pieces of Mjolnir. The variant was created for the failed Project Optimus, but despite its obscure history and lack of widespread use by Spartan operatives, ÖKONOM was viewed as another early success for Bewältigkeit Rüstungssystema, further cementing them as a reliable manufacturer for Mjolnir. ÖKONOM was likely field-tested sometime between 2527 and 2529, but widely forgotten and produced less over time once more Mjolnir variants entered service over the next decade, making the helmet fade mostly into obscurity. The security class of Mjolnir was originally manufactured in 2528 and was built for, you guessed it, security purposes. The armor was designed by Mizraia Armory and tested on Mars. Security specialized in defending military installations, ships, and command sites. The pauldrons seen here were also developed for the security variant, but could be customized to fit with other armor variants as well. The helmet was popular among teams protecting those deemed highly valued. Before the introduction of the HAZOP class Mjolnir, the Mark IV EMIL acted as an early prototype to HAZOP, developed to protect those in environments that even the base Mjolnir helmet might have had trouble with. The EMIL helmet was designed by Materials Group early on in the Human Covenant War, and it laid the groundwork for every hazardous environment Mjolnir variant that came after it. The helmet could protect the user in chemically volatile atmospheres, irradiated battlefields, and areas exposed to biohazards of any kind. The THEODOR helmet was an experimental variant designed at the Songnam Special Warfare Center by Materials Group. It was a part of a limited production line meant to explore alternative battlefield optics and helmet configurations. We know very little about THEODOR, and it didn't seem to experience widespread use during the Human Covenant War. When I start talking about the Silver Timeline armor, I'm going to be getting super speculative. Some of it's going to be completely made up, while other parts will be technically canon, pulling from both timelines and being mashed together purely for the fun of it. If you're not into that, that's totally fine. You can skip ahead and I'll drop a timestamp for a section past all of this silver nonsense. But for everyone else, let's get into it. The BERTA helmet was developed by Materials Group alongside the Hrunting YGG Drazel Mark I armor defense system, a heavy exosuit used during the invasion of Algolis in 2549. BERTA also featured some of the first specialized designs with sniper integration in mind. The helmet included sniper targeting interlinks and a smart shot interface system, giving enhanced functionality to Spartans who operated best at long range. The BERTA helmet also enhanced calibration, target acquisition, and predictive tracking. BERTA entered service way before the Mark I armor defense system, with its first known deployment pointing toward the year of 2528. Spartan II Kai 125 wore the BERTA helmet while engaging Covenant forces on Madrigal prior to the planet's glassing later that same year. Possibly named to honor the first Spartan to fall in combat, the Samuel helmet was created for recon and surveillance operations. It was equipped with upgraded sensors and battlefield analysis tools. One of the first known field uses was in 2528 when Spartan Riz 028 wore the helmet during Operation Defiant Glass on Madrigal. By 2531, during the Arcadian campaign, Riz personally contributed to firmware development for the helmet after studying Covenant Hunter-Seeker drones. That research led to BIOS upgrades, tracking behavior enhancements, motion prediction, and sensor resistance against active scan interference. The ULRICH helmet gets its name from German roots, meaning heritage and ruler. It was one of the first helmets in Mjolnir to feature built-in data cores that could be programmed and customized to suit mission needs. It made the armor far more modular than any other Mjolnir counterpart at the time, and while it may not be as widely known as other variants of Mjolnir, its contribution to modular tech made it a pivotal piece of equipment in the evolution of the platform. The ISIDOR helmet was developed from technical schematics crafted by Yellow Team, a group of Spartan II combat engineers. Unfortunately, this variant never saw mass production due to the severe financial, logistical, and industrial strain faced by the UNSC at this time during the war, leaving ISIDOR as a variant that saw limited deployment in combat operations. The helmet is compatible with Watershed Division's TAC Mothworm attachment, which allowed for evaluation of both UNSC enemy encampments, troop and vehicle dispositions, and local topography to generate strategic planning on the battlefield. There was a lesser-known third iteration of Base Mark IV developed during the early years of the Human Covenant War, sometime after the first two versions. Despite seeing limited deployment, this armor was used by Spartan Group Omega while engaging Covenant forces during the waning years of the Harvest campaign. Visually, aside from its silhouette, the armor was pretty distinct from the first two iterations of Base Mark IV. Its limited use could suggest that the armor never fully lived up to performance standards, expectations, or adaptability of the other Base Mark IV systems. But it's certainly an interesting piece of armor, nonetheless. EOD was originally developed at the UNSC Damascus Materials Testing Facility on Kayseri 4. EOD likely came about as a result of the loss of Samuel 034. The EOD helmet was designed to reduce the chance of decapitation, particularly during explosive incidents. The design was pretty damn helpful for any Spartans operating around explosive ordnance, mine clearance, demolition, and bomb defusal. Sometime after the Battle of Arcadia in February of 2531, Vanek 134 wore a finalized version of Mark IV EOD. James 005 also wore Mark IV EOD during the Battle of Sigma Atanas IV in the summer of 2552. And while the helmet successfully protected him against the assault of two hunters, his right arm could not say the same. Development on the EVA variant of Mjolnir began as early as 2525. The variant was officially created at a UNSC low-gravity testing facility located in Lister Egberth on Ganymede, with refinements based on feedback gathered from the Suma Deep Space Incident. By 2531, the first version of Mark IV EVA officially entered service, although prototype permutations likely existed before then. The EVA variant was created to keep Spartans protected while operating in the vacuum of space. The Mark IV version required a thruster pack for movement in zero gravity. Over time, EVA became one of the most utilized and reinvented helmets across multiple Mjolnir generations. Kelly 087 has shown a strong favoritism for EVA variants due to her preference of having an open-face visor. This preference likely began when she was issued her custom-made COBALT armor in December of 2525. The YPSILON helmet was developed by Materials Group for specialized Spartan deployments. Each YPSILON helmet came with a VISR prototype field-tested by Spartan TUS. This led to the recommended integration of it into the next generation of Mjolnir helmets. The helmet was also compatible with Project Sycamore. While similar to Seaburn, Sycamore was a classified hardware attachment designed to protect Spartans from Covenant bioweapons. It included a hardened life support upgrade and a compact sensor suite. A decade into Mjolnir's development, more than 10 unique variants had been created under the Mark IV platform. Despite the growing number of these visually distinct variants, the internal hardware, software, and neural interface and subsystems remained largely the same, which is why they were still all classified under that Mark IV platform. By 2535, Mjolnir had become easily the most expensive military asset in UNSC history. As I mentioned earlier, a single suit could cost as much as a UNSC destroyer, and so due to these extreme costs, the Budgetary Commission overseeing Mjolnir mandated the Mark system to organize every variant currently under the Mark IV umbrella. This was imperative for ensuring each armor could be fundable and broken into different manufacturing phases based on the armor generations. Following that meeting, Dr. Catherine Halsey began sketching out multiple hypothetical improvements for future generations, including concepts for the Mark V, Mark VI, and beyond. The Grenadier variant was manufactured by Materials Group just a decade after Mjolnir entered service. This up-armored prototype served as a testbed for improved energy shielding technology. It laid the groundwork for what would eventually become full energy shield integration by 2551 during the transition to the Mark V platform. The Grenadier helmet featured a reinforced outer shell designed to reduce head trauma. A customized version of this helmet featuring an up-armored configuration was worn by George 052, along with matching chest, shoulder, and knee pieces. The Commando variant of Mjolnir was designed by Chaleb's Defense Solutions for Spartans tasked with leading fire teams and operating in deep hostile territory. Several attachments could be equipped with the Commando helmet, each optimized for specific combat scenarios. The shoulder pieces were manufactured by ULRICH Systeme for extra protection, and were known to be favored by more than just Spartan team leaders, seeing widespread use among Spartans heading straight into the front lines. I'd bet the shoulder pieces paired well with CQB and CQC variants. One of the earliest known instances of this armor being issued to a Spartan was when Carter A259 received his Mark IV-B variant in 2536, after the finalization of his augmentations. The armor received included a prototype of the Commando helmet, along with its matching shoulder piece. Carter later had this armor upgraded in 2551 for the Mark V platform. Frederick 104 used Commando paired with his base Mark IV armor in 2552, during the Battle of Sigma Taunus IV. The Zacharias helmet was a relatively obscure piece of equipment, but early deployment of it proved highly effective. The helmet was developed by Materials Group around 2537. The RS dogtooth attachment designed for the helmet was created by Mesraya Armory, acting as a compact electronic warfare suite used to detect, track, and triangulate enemy battle network nodes in real time. It was pretty damn useful against the insurrectionists, but pretty dog shit against the Covenant. To expand further, the RS dogtooth was designed for human-based communication systems, not Covenant. By this point in the war, translator technology for Covenant speech had been in use for at least a few years, but was far from perfect. Zacharias was issued to and field tested by some of the first Spartan 3 headhunter strike teams. These headhunters specialized in extremely dangerous missions, such as enemy infiltrations and assassinations without any backup or support. If you ever saw a Spartan wearing this helmet, the chances are that they weren't there to help you, they were more likely there to silence you. Although the pilot helmet officially entered service in 2541, it wasn't adopted by the UNSC Air Force until a year later. It was originally designed for aerospace personnel, but was quickly adapted and redesigned for integration into the MJOLNIR platform. Although there are clear visual similarities between the pilot helmet and the spy helmet, those similarities are purely cosmetic. Spartan operators who frequently worked under Air Force or Naval Aerospace Command were often issued the pilot class of MJOLNIR. It also supported a variety of modular attachments, including the 3rd Gen hardened uplink module and up-armored plates, and the US Type E6 reinforced visor. It's possible that Spartan B312 would have used this helmet while he operated as a test pilot for the now declassified Sabre program. However, that goes unconfirmed, as his background seems to still be heavily shrouded in black ink. A modified version of the pilot helmet, known only as Haunted, was fitted with a holographic projection of a skull on the visor. Although it can be assumed that it was designed primarily for Spartan 3 headhunters, there have been no confirmed sightings of this helmet being used in the field, and similar to Zacharias, that's sort of the point. If you are unlucky enough to find yourself in the midst of the Haunted, it means you're already dead. Although this makes it similar to Zacharias, if I was given a choice, I would much rather come face to face with a Spartan wearing this than death itself on the battlefield. Whoever utilized this helmet must have been nothing short of a badass. The Wilhelm helmets came about as a result of a classified challenge issued by Dr. Catherine Halsey, and was developed by Damascus Materials Testing Facility under Materials Group. Its visual design is highly reminiscent of what would later become the Gen 2 warrior class of MJOLNIR, and it very likely served as early inspiration for that armor. Wilhelm was also compatible with a specialized version of the multi-threat Seaburn suite, along with a custom-rigged environmental RSP DR552 DULE scanner suite, a setup specifically built for Spartan boarding parties operating in hazardous and zero-atmosphere conditions. Given the previous description, it would seem that Wilhelm acted as a more tactical substitute for EVA operators, specifically engaging in boarding operations. The absence of this helmet later on in the war could have resulted from the introduction of CQC in 2548, which also specialized in hazardous warfare, only with a more universal Seaburn suite that could be attached, making it more common on the battlefield. Not to mention, the CQC variant becoming the standard equipment for Spartan boarding parties was likely what truly phased out Wilhelm altogether, until the spiritual successor, Warrior, gave it the much-needed comeback on the Gen 2 platform, and then the original helmet itself eventually seeing further use with the revitalization of Mark IV post-Gen 3. Sometime prior to Operation Warm Blanket in 2544, Watershed Division developed a new variant of MJOLNIR for Spartan battlefield commanders, a helmet that would later become known as the Cohort class MJOLNIR variant once it was upgraded for the Gen 3 platform. Whether or not this early version of the helmet was also officially designated Cohort is up for debate, but for the sake of clarity, we'll refer to it as Cohort for now. The helmet was designed to enhance situational awareness and decision-making in high-pressure circumstances. It integrated real-time analytics, command uplinks, and predictive AI modeling, all to support a fire team with a full C4I2SR package. The first known use of this helmet was during Operation Warm Blanket, when it was worn by Frederick 104, Arthur 079, and Solomon 069. Fred set even came with modified twin-blade shoulder pieces, officially known as the up-armored Nampa attachment. I guess Blue Team really did remind him to tell Halsey how much he liked those blades in his previous armor. The CQC variant became the standard equipment used for boarding actions and is also designed to operate in hazardous environments, giving it a close relationship with HAZOP. It's no wonder that many Spartans utilizing CQC will often equip the CBurn attachment. CQC served as a counterpart to the better-known CQB variant. While both were designed for short-range engagement, CQC focused more on increasing the survivability of a Spartan. It also featured modular open port conversion options, allowing for quick modifications during missions, with compatible attachments like CBurn, uplink modules for real-time intelligence acquisition, and up-armored plating, to name a few. The CQC shoulder plates were designed to withstand a direct strike from an energy sword, and while certainly ambitious, these goals were sadly never met. By 2548, the Mark IV version of CQC entered service. The armor excelled in tight quarters, its helmet and shoulder pauldrons built with enhanced ballistic protection in mind. Rosenda A344 wore a variant of Mark V CQC during the defense of Concord in 2551. The Valiant helmet was co-developed by Emerson Tactical Systems and ULRICH Systeme, not long before the introduction of Mark V-B. Valiant was compatible with CNM5 BNR Typhon X attachments. By 2560, Leon 011 of Omega Team was using the Valiant helmet in combat. The ÄRGER variant consolidated 30 years of progress made with the MJOLNIR systems into a single helmet. The name ÄRGER is derived from German, meaning anger or annoyance, which probably reflects how Materials Group felt trying to cram 30 years of data into a single piece of headgear. ÄRGER pushed the boundaries of what MJOLNIR was capable of, and its design features eventually found their way into already existing Mark V and Mark VI MJOLNIR equipment. It would have been first deployed and used by surviving Spartan IIs sometime around 2555, 3 decades after the introduction of the Mark IV platform. Following the Human Covenant War, the Gen 2 platform was introduced, and with it, a variation of Mark IV upgraded for it. The main difference between this armor and the original Mark IV really came down to the firmware updates it introduced thanks to Gen 2. After Atriox rocked Douglas 042 shit, when Douglas 042's original set of Mark IV was heavily damaged during his encounter with the Atriox, a new armor was needed to get the Spartan II back onto the field. Unable to fully replicate the core systems of Douglas's original MJOLNIR armor, the crew of the Spirit of Fire took to improvising. With assistance from Red Team, engineers and mechanics took Gen 2 components recovered from scattered UNSC outposts on the Ark and used them to reverse engineer and modify the tech, resulting in the Mark IV Gen 2 hybrid. Visually, the armor resembled a conglomerate of both Mark IV and Mark VI designs. The Paladin helmet was born from Dr. Halsey's return to her original Mark IV design, which was then reformatted for the Gen 3 platform to be used with Spartan 3 and Spartan 4 soldiers. Halsey built the thing herself, with a box of scraps! Project Goswit was an attachment suite for Paladin, featuring a bespoke target acquisition system combined with a hardened uplink module. A chestplate attachment was also manufactured by ULRICH Systeme, labeled as the up-armored NERA ATS, giving the Spartan user better field resistance without hindering mobility. By 2560, the Paladin helmet was worn by Spartan II Robert 025 of Omega Team. The ARDENT variant was developed for the Mark IV platform as a unique homegrown helmet, one of a kind, developed by the crew of the UNSC Spirit of Fire while on Installation 00. It was worn by August 099, and he'll continue to be its only operator until, or if, the armor ever hits mass production. ARDENT's TAS-FES Brontes targeting uplink was also created aboard the Spirit of Fire with the use of salvaged parts. And that's all of the Mark IV MJOLNIR variants that we know of, for now. With more popping up in the public eye following further production of Mark IV on the Gen 3 platform, there are bound to be lesser-known variants that come forth to reveal themselves, and potentially new variants to be made as well. Mark IV acted as the foundation for all future MJOLNIR variants and platforms to come.